ignoring that because the belief in Allah is that the way a Muslim should be? Or do we sometimes get stressed? How do you deal with this situation?
There's more than one way of dealing with this.
It could be anything, by the way. Marriage, parents.
Well, that's
I'm going through a lot of things at my stage in life. I'm trying to find a balance. But my family are getting stressed, but I don't want to get stressed because it gets me stressed. So I try to tell them it's going to be okay, Allah has a plan. But my mum said, you can't always have that. Because mum is not practicing. So I'm trying to find it hard to balance me. And I'm having full trust in Allah that's going to sort everything. I'm trying to have the foundation. You understand?
Well, this is what we have to have. And there's definitely no harm in having it from a psychological perspective. The more trust you have in Allah, the more optimism you will have. And this is something in Islam is called fa'l. Fa'l is optimism. And this is something the Muslims believe.
And this is a good trait to carry on everything.
For example, yes it is. For example, when the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was escaping from Mecca to Medina, and he went into the Ghar Hira with the cave with Abu Bakr Siddiq, and the ayat came down. إذ قال لصاحبه لا تحزن إن الله معنا. You know that he said to his friend, so Muhammad ﷺ, he said to Abu Bakr Siddiq, don't be fearful, Allah is with us. Same thing exactly what you said to your family. To think about it. And bear in mind, he said لا تحزن. He didn't say لا تخف. He didn't say don't be scared. لا تحزن, because he was Abu Bakr Siddiq was upset about the situation. He wasn't scared about anything. He was upset that the Prophet would go through all his problems. So Allah Himself, He gives us this advice. The Prophet, He gives his friends that advice. You know, the Prophets, when they went to their people, that was one of the first things they always told the people. More so when He told his people, He said, you know, He said, I'm just trying to remember the ayah, but it's basically said to his people, you know, have tawakkul on Allah.
But does that mean fully?
Fully.
No, but my belief, I'm talking about in general things like, life problems and issues.
It doesn't mean.
I don't understand. I'm finding it tricky to understand.
So what Ibn al-Qayyim, one of the scholars, he mentioned this situation. He says, it doesn't mean that you say I have all full faith in Allah and full reliance on Him. That means I'm going to do nothing and sit down.
No. Of course you do the job.
Yes,
don't be a bum.
There's a hadith of the Prophet. He said, "Aqilha wa tawakkal." Basically, some guy, Sahabi, wanted to leave his camel like that. He said, "No, actually, tie it up and then have reliance on God." So you do everything you need to do, just like in that hadith. You tie it, and then you have tawakkul of Allah. But you have full tawakkul.
Right. Yes. Okay, I understand. But that's okay, I understand. But it can be challenging, but that's like Allah's love, right? Allah's testing you. Because if you have an easy life, that means Allah's not challenging, like Allah's not loving you as much, right?
There is something to that effect, bro. Like, men ashaddu bala'an ba'd al-anbiya. Hadith says that who are those who are tested after the anbiya? And I'm paraphrasing, but amthal, or those who are most like them, and then those who are most like them. So it's a situation of reality. Even you will be tested. Some say, well, does that mean, because this puts a lot of people off. They say, I'd rather not be strong believer, so I don't get tested then. But actually, it's only a test when you are a believer. Otherwise, it will be a punishment if you are a disbeliever. If you are a disbeliever, it will be a punishment. If you have rejected Islam, then it's not a test, but it's a punishment. You still feel the pain. And what's the evidence of that? The evidence of that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you know, in Surah Al-Balad, وَهَدَيْنَاهُ النَّجْدَيْنِ, and we have guided them to the two uphill path. Why is it two uphill path? The kuffar will take the uphill path to hell, the ones who reject Islam and so on, and the Muslims, the true believer, will take the uphill path to heaven. It's hard work on both sides. You will face adversity either way. لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي كَبَدٍ. We have created the human being in a state of toil. which means hardship. Hardship is inescapable in the human condition. You will always find hardship. But when you are a Muslim and believer, it will be something which is intrinsic, fruitful, and it will be a test. It will mean something to you. Whereas your disbeliever is haba and mansura. Nothing.
You find it hard to
But
grasp it.
sorry, just add, can you not, doesn't Allah say in the Quran that Allah sends a small calamity to divert a bigger calamity? So as a disbeliever, can that calamity, if he's going to lead them to Islam, is that a curse, is that a test, or is that
Yeah, that wouldn't be a test. So in this case, where the ayah, I think I mentioned it a few times today, لَقَدْ بَلَوْنَاكُمْ بِالْحَسَنَاتِ وَالسَّيِّئَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ تُرْجَعُونَ, that we have tested you with hasanat, good things, and bad things, so you can come back. So yes, it could be a punishment. It could also be a test to bring them back on the path.
That's what I'm saying.
Like same thing with like the qawm and stuff.
Because Allah wants the best for all of us. Allah is just, Allah is loving, Allah is beautiful.
He wants the best for all of
So
us.
if someone's negative, can I say, don't be negative, brother. Look at the best thing, like you've got
That's
eyes.
exactly what you should be doing as a Muslim.
But I feel like people are, because my uncle is always huffing, puffing, anxiety, and this reminds me of my past. I used to be like sad.
Yeah, and that can never, and that will not.
I want the
That's
best for everyone.
look. Negativity begets negativity. That is a positive. You know this discussion of positive energy. It's true, bro.
So
if you're
that's
around,
the thing, yeah?
that's the thing, brother. Because if you're around people that are negative, you're going to be negative as well. It's a tafa'ul and tasha'um in the Arabic language. Tafa'ul is when you're positive and optimistic, and that's part of the religion. I'm telling you, the Prophet himself in a hadith, he says al-fa'l, which means optimism. That's how you translate it. So for example, I'll give you an example, yeah? Say you're making dua. You're making dua to, oh Allah, give me this, give me that, and it starts raining. How should we perceive that rain? According to this hadith, we should perceive it as a good sign. Be optimistic. Allah is maybe answering my dua right now. Do you get me? Being
That's why you make dua when it's raining.
No, not when it's raining. I'm giving an example. But anything that happens, you got to look at the world half full. If you look at the world half empty, if you look at the glass half empty in the world, then you are going to, it's going to miss out. Look, there are studies on this. Okay. On the extreme end is something called nihilism, which means someone that is completely purposeless, hasn't got a direction, hasn't got nothing, doesn't think that there's worth of life living. Those people are most predisposed to severe and acute anxiety disorder and depression. Why would you want to put something into your psyche that will make you as a person more predisposed to psychological illnesses like this? Optimism, and there is over optimism, which is called delusions of grandeur, where you think everything's going to be fine. Yeah. Which bipolar people have this. It's just like a maniac, a mania. Well, you know, that's not what we want. We're not talking about someone who's being unrealistic. It's got to be grounded in some level of
balance.
Yeah, but we're not pessimists. Realism, if you want to put it that way, and optimism are fine, but pessimism is haram. Pessimism. Let me tell you why. The Prophet Muhammad, he said, "And عند حسن ظن عبدي بي." I am as my slave makes of me. So in other words, if you assume that Allah is going to do bad things to you, you're going to get what you assume. If you assume Allah is going to do good, then you're going to get what you assume. That's why Ibn Qayyim in his book Ad-Da' wad-Dawa, The Medicine and the Cure, he mentions in the first chapters the power of dua and the importance of dua. And he says that if you make dua to Allah and you don't believe that it's going to be answered, it won't be answered. One of the conditions of dua is that you have to have an ilhah fi dua, which is basically persistence in dua. Confidence and persistence. Allah is going to do it. Believe you me, if you have weakness in dua, you're not going to get anything done. Do you get me? So you have to. He mentioned 6 conditions actually. It's got to be in the right time. It should be qibla. You have to have adab. You have to have etiquette with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The right times are like that between the adhan and the thing, and the iqama and the adhan and the iqama. The last 2/3 of the night, the sujood, the sa'at al-istijaba and jumu'ah, and these things.
Yeah.
If you want to do dua, do it properly. How you do dua? You make hamd of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, salat on the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, face the qibla, on tahara, proper making dua. And he mentioned something so powerful. He said, dua is min aqwal asbab. It's one of the most powerful causes. Allah, He put causes in the dunya, and He made dua the most powerful one. It's the silah of the mu'min, He mentioned. It's the ammunition of the believer. And you know, he said something interesting, Ibn Qayyim. He said it's the ammunition of the believer, but because it's ammunition, it's like a sword. If the person who's wielding it yielding the sword is weak, then the shot, the hit will be weak. So you have to be strong when you're making the dua. Dua is an extremely important thing, and you cannot be pessimistic when you're making dua. Likewise, you shouldn't be pessimistic at all.
Could be that reason why Allah doesn't answer as well, because you're not.
Yes, these are reasons why Allah does not answer dua. These are called mawani' al-istijaba. These are the reasons that prevent us.
It's the same with prayer as well. Like,
Yeah,
when
no.
your mom told you to pray, you just pray.
Well,
There's no meaning for it.
If you have to have khushu' in the prayer. What I'm saying is that your dua will not be answered if you don't believe it will be answered.
Yeah, and what about the man? What about the man who said? You know, the Prophet ﷺ said the man who his clothing is haram. What he earns is haram.
Yeah, فَأَنَّ يُسْتَجَابَ لَهُ, the hadith says. How is it that his dua will be answered? وَمَلْبَسُهُ حَرَامٌ وَمَأْكَلُهُ حَرَامٌ. Everything is haram. فَأَنَّ يُسْتَجَابَ لَهُ. How is it going to be answered? So that's another category of preventers. But what we're saying is that some people say, oh, Allah doesn't answer my dua. I can tell you something. Allah has answered all my dua my whole life. There's never been one dua Allah has not answered. I'm not saying that to show off. Wallahi, I've never thought of one dua except for some people that I've made dua for that haven't died yet. But that's in Allah's hands. When He finished them, killed them. Bashar al-Assad and so on. These kinds of individuals. But Allah, that's something up to Allah. But apart from that, all my du'as are, why? Because I know now, you have to, yani, when you make a dua, you can't say, oh, Allah is going to do it or not. I don't believe, are you there? The worst kind of dua, if you're there, please. Can you imagine? If you're there, answer me. Astaghfirullah, what do you mean if you're there? You're not going to be guided. If you're there, please help me. What do you mean if you're there? What do you mean if you're there? Khalas, it's like going to like, what do you call it? The doctor. If you're there, please give me a prescription. If you're there, you're conditioning it with his existence. That's not dua that's bound to be answered. You have yaqeen in dua, it's istiqan, you have strength, and you have ilhah and persistence and so on. No. This is so important. The religion of Islam is optimistic. Like I said, the Prophet, he used the word optimism. The word optimism, fa'l. Yeah? The fa and the hamza and the lam. He used those words himself. He says al-fa'l. Yeah? This in the religion. It's very important. Optimism is wajib. And pessimism is haram.
So that is hand in hand with the belief in Allah. Because your optimism good and your belief, you're hand in hand with Allah. Because I know Allah was the best, and you try, obviously at the foundation level, don't go to extreme, think too ahead, but what you're saying is keep it grounded.
You have to be sure.
And good.
Always
and
be sure.
Positive.
Allah is ala kulli shay'in qadir. He can do everything.
Yeah.
Uqsum billah, he can do everything. You'll be so surprised what he can do. You'll be so shocked.
But sometimes I get in my family, people telling me, no, don't, you're going too far. My mom said, my neighbors, there's too much Islam.
Too much Islam.
It's not, because you know the Prophet time, how do you know that's the right Islam? But when you do too much Islam, people say you're too extreme. But then was the Prophet time too extreme? How, do you understand?
I understand,
Very
but this,
extreme.
look, who is on the haqq? You on the haqq, they're on the batil. You're on the truth, they're on falsehood. Don't let the people of, I'm not going to say the people of falsehood, but people who are espousing falsehood deter you or perturb you from the haqq, from the truth. There's no upper limit to how much you can make dua. It's very important. There is no upper limit to how much you can make dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ الدَّاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. If my slave asks me about me, then I am near. Do you know this is a very interesting verse? You know why? Usually when tasa'ul comes in Quran, when they ask about this person asks this and that, يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ قُلْ. There's always that word قُلْ there. قُلْ فِيهِمَا إِثْمٌ كَبِيرٌ وَمَنَافِعٌ لِلنَّاسِ. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ ذِي الْقَرْنَيْنِ قُلْ سَأَتْلُو عَلَيْكَ يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ قُلْ. This ayah does not have قُلْ in it. Because why? Because Allah says, if my slave asks you about me, then I am near. قُلْ has been omitted. Why? Just to bring that closer to you as well. To bring that closer to you as well. Lexically, the words are coming together, just like Allah wants you to come together with Him. This is the delicacy and the precision and the sophistication and the meticulousness of the lexical items in Islam.
So would you say, maybe small matter, big matter, like if we have an argument, shut it down and run to Allah. Maybe a little thing. Is that what you're trying to say?
Every little thing, every kabira and saghira, every small and big thing. Allah is never like time is closed, His office closed. Every time Allah hears what you have to say. At any time you want to speak to Allah, you speak to Him. It's called munajah. You want to make dua to Him, you make dua to Him. If you want to beg Him, you beg Him. We are His slaves at the end of the day. And there are so many hadith on the dua. so many الدعاء هو العبادة. الدعاء is ibadah. It is worship itself. You ask Allah whenever. You have istiqan, you have belief, you have optimism. Like I said, optimism is wajib on the Muslim. Al-Fa'l, the Prophet himself, he said the word optimism. He used the word optimism.
Sorry, guys.
At-tasha'um is haram. Pessimism is haram.
Yeah,
And by ijma' it's haram. Because it goes against husn al-dhann of Allah. We always have to think good things are going to happen. And by the way, you were talking, and another thing, you make the specific dua for ham and hazan. For example, Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min al-hammi wal-hazan wal-'ajzi wal-kasal wal-jubni wal-bukhl.
Is that with anxiety?
وأعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال.
What's this reference to?
This is a hadith about dua, about anxiety and depression and all that.
Yeah, I heard of this one.
Yeah. اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. Hadith like this, very important. That you make things easy and blah blah. This is very important.
No, but alhamdulillah, I've battled that side.
Yes.
Now, it's a matter of composing and balancing my life now. But now I'm getting tests, more tests. And because I'm the only child and I don't talk to anyone much, I think Shaitan's trying to mess me up with my mom.
Listen,
so me and my mum have
brother,
a strong relationship.
You have a strong relationship, don't change that. Don't ever change that. Because you change that, you'll be doing bad things.
No, because now
But it doesn't mean that everything she says is right. Okay? The deen is important that you keep it pristine. لا طاعة لمخلوق بمعصية الخالق. There's no obedience to the creation in the disobedience of the creator.
Yeah.
All I'm saying to you right now is, your mum is the most important woman in your life right now. Okay?
She's not praying.
Huh?
She's not praying.
Don't worry about that.
I'm trying so
Fine.
hard.
Keep pushing. Bismillah. You know,
Am I doing so wrong?
all I'm saying is, you need to keep the optimism, keep the dua, keep the prayers, keep the khushu', and have a good structure in your life. You'll be alright.
Alhamdulillah, if that's what they keep going.
Yes.
Yeah. But thank you.